We all know the word albino and its simplistic association with people and animals who are pure white in color. For many around the world, that is the extent of knowledge, and there is little awareness of the greater picture associated with albinism, which is actually a collective term for various congenital conditions characterized by complications in melanin production and thus varying degrees of pigment expression. Though albinism may occasionally be characterized as a disability, its symptoms do not in fact disable those with the condition, aside from its potentially dramatic effects on eyesight. Rather, often the greatest challenges associated with the condition are the social stigmas surrounding the conspicuous phenotype. As we explore the causes and effects of albinism, we will simultaneously expose the unjustifiable superstition, discrimination, and stigma surrounding the condition and highlight the need for increased awareness. The word albino comes from the Latin albus, which means white. There are numerous genes and proteins involved in melanin production and expression, the vast majority of which are autosomal recessive. One particular exception is the rare X-linked genetic defect associated with ocular albinism, which primarily affects eye pigmentation and function. The more common and recognizable form of albinism, which affects hair, skin, and eye pigmentation and function, is known as oculocutaneous albinism, of which there are four main types, each one characterized by a distinct gene mutation that interrupts different stages of melanin production, resulting in a spectrum of severity of symptoms. Symptoms vary along a spectrum of melanin production consistent with different types of albinism. However, they all generally include nystagmus, which is the involuntary side-to-side movement of the eyes, strabismus, which refers to crossed eyes, photophobia, which is extreme sensitivity to light, misrouting of the optic chiasma, astigmatism, and decreased acuity to the point of legal blindness. Other symptoms include lack of hair and skin pigmentation, which causes extreme dermal sensitivity to sunlight and thus increased susceptibility to sunburn and skin cancers. This increased susceptibility relates to one of melanin's main functions, which is to protect DNA from UV radiation by acting as a photoprotectant by means of a process called ultrafast internal conversion, in which melanin dissipates more than 99.9% of absorbed UV radiation as heat. Observation of lack of pigment in skin and hair compared to other family members is a central element of albinism diagnosis, though advances are being made along the frontier of genotype analysis. The other elements of diagnosis occur via a thorough examination of the eyes by an ophthalmologist, which should occur every year to monitor potential deterioration. Treatments for eyesight include corrective lenses and potentially surgery to correct strabismus and nystagmus. Treatment employs various optic aids, including eyeglasses fitted with bioptic telescopes, which serve to powerfully magnify objects and even enable certain people to drive who otherwise could not. As for cancer prevention, staying out of the sun is paramount. When sun exposure cannot be avoided, it must be mitigated by protective layers, hats, and sunscreen. Skin exams should be performed annually as well. Someday, perhaps not too far in the future, gene therapy will be used to restore the potential of people with albinism to produce and utilize melanin. Numerous genes are responsible for the various types of albinism, and each type has a specific epidemiology. Males and females are equally susceptible to all types of oculocutaneous albinism, as they are all virtually autosomal recessive. Internationally, epidemiological rates are consistent with a few exceptions. For type 1, the incidence is 1 case per 40,000 population. In type 2, it is 1 case per 36,000, except in Africans and African Americans, in whom the incidence is 1 case per 10,000. Type 3 incidence is unknown, and type 4 is extremely rare, except in Japan, where 24% of individuals with oculocutaneous albinism have this form. Ocular albinism is also fairly rare, with an incidence of 1 case per 50,000, and males are much more susceptible to this condition as it is X-linked. One remarkable outlier is the incidence of 1 case of oculocutaneous albinism per 145 births among the Kuna people of Panama, who may have a unique mutation among their population. 3 separate syndromes share symptoms of disrupted melanin metabolism with traditional oculocutaneous albinism, but through different pathophysiological means. They are called Chediak-Higashi syndrome, Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome, and Griscelli syndrome, and they include more serious symptoms such as lung disease, gastrointestinal complications, bleeding disorders, and impaired immune function. They are all distinct and extremely rare, except that, strangely, Hermansky-Pudlak syndrome occurs in 1 case per 1,800 in Puerto Rico. As albinism often presents such a distinct phenotype, a culture of superstition, discrimination, and stigma has grown around individuals with the condition. In some cultures, such as in the Kuna, people with albinism are revered as having a powerful spiritual role in the community. However, the typical reaction around the world is fear due to ignorance. Brother Ali, is a famous American hip-hop artist with albinism. He recalls being ridiculed and excluded by his white peers throughout childhood, even though he was from a white family. Interestingly, he claims to have felt most at home from an early age with African Americans, perhaps because they could relate to discrimination. We are often afraid of what we don't understand, and in our fear, we may create outrageous assertions and become violent. Such is the case in Tanzania, where people with albinism have been killed, dismembered, and even had their limbs sold to witch doctors to make potions that bring good fortune. However, movement of awareness and solidarity has taken hold in parts of sub-Saharan Africa, such as in Tanzania, where a man with albinism was just elected to the country's parliament. Tanzania has a particularly high incidence of albinism at 1 in 3,000, and many affected individuals don't live past their 30s due to cancer from the relentless equatorial sun. Also in Tanzania, in an effort to further solidarity and awareness, people with albinism form their own soccer team. They practice in the evening when the sun goes down, gain strength through camaraderie, and they humanize themselves in the eyes of the prejudiced public by showing that they are regular people. Another story comes from a woman from India, Mani Poolan, who after giving birth to her first child with albinism, decided she didn't want her children to suffer discrimination as she did, so she went to the doctor for a hysterectomy. The doctor became scared looking at her and turned her away. Poolan never went back. Now she has many children with albinism. In fact, they all have albinism, as her husband carries 2 alleles for it as well, and she sees them as a gift from God. This transition from stigma to appreciation seems to be catching on around the world. I'll leave you with a short inspirational video clip about a teenager with albinism who discovered self-empowerment in his own right, this time through music.
For Rob Darius, the social stigma of being different is at times overwhelming.
A lot of bullying and all types of criticism from people.
I mean, he thought everybody was against him, so it was like real hurtful. I used to try to explain to him, but he didn't understand. He just was wondering why, Mama, why is something so different?
I'm young and I'm gifted, but it ain't even close to Christmas.
Now Rob Darius is learning to take the stairs in stride by rapping, something he started doing 2 years ago while his mother Latoya was listening to some tracks.
Just by rapping, I felt that it was an escape for me.
His alter ego is Robin X.
Robin X is a bit cocky, he's smart, and he's very hyper. He has a lot of swag and he's chill back a lot.
Rob Darius says his music and his increased confidence have changed the way people see him.
Kids actually come up to me, they don't call me the white kid anymore. It's, oh, hey, Robin, how you doing, Robin? When are you going to put out a new song, Robin?
And Mom loves the change she sees in her son.
Robin X says, I'm loving who I am. My white hair is beautiful. My gray eyes is beautiful. I love me. I love Robin X. And Rob Darius is growing through Robin X as a person.
It's the gift of self-love that Rob Darius and his mother want to share with others who are ostracized for being different.
There's a lot of kids committing suicide today because of bullying and, people not understanding who they are.
Just to, change it for other people with albinism, and help them out to feel more confident than usual.
Go crazy! When Rob Darius isn't crusading against bullies and going to school, he works on his music, hoping to bring a new face to the rap world and new understanding to the world about albinism.